Hey, interweb, it's Mick the old punk. I'm laughing because this is my 6th attempt to record this video. I have so many conflicting ideas going on in my head right now that I'm like, shiny object, I can't seem to focus on it. And I have 3 or 4 leading ideas that I want to talk about. And I decided that I'm going to go with a 4th or 5th one that I haven't tried to record here the last couple of minutes, strictly because I'm struggling to organize my thoughts in these other areas. So what I decided I will talk about instead is something that I touched on a little bit in an earlier video, but I want to do a bit of a deeper dive into it because somebody on the internet reached out to me and felt some kind of comfort or support from my touching on this topic before. And that's one of the goals of this channel here, is to try and foster some kind of community where we have a place where we can talk about this, especially men, because there's an awful lot of men that don't have someone they can talk to or a place where they can feel safe. So if you don't want to watch till the end, I'm going to tell you right now, this video is about how I quit drinking, how I beat my alcoholism. And spoiler alert, I'm not recommending you do what I did. But I'm hoping that by telling you what I did, maybe if you're having issues with alcohol, drugs even, maybe this will help a little. So I started drinking when I was a teenager. I'm from England, and the drinking culture is, massive over there. At least it used to be. And as a minor, younger than 16, you could go to a pub and you could have a half pint of beer or cider at, I think, 13 or 14, if an adult accompanied you and they paid for it. And I guess because of the stress of what I went through, I always looked older than I was. And so I was able to go into a pub at 15 and drink all night, and no one ID'd me. Plus, it was a different time. They didn't ID as much back then, And so I started drinking at a really early age. And then I was unceremoniously made homeless shortly after I turned 16. And it was tough because I had no job, I had no money, I had no place to stay. And it was quite scary being in London alone. And the person who was entrusted with my care and my well-being abandoned me many, many years before. But as soon as they were legally able to get rid of me, they did. And I remember I went back a few days later to see if there was any way I could apologize for the crap that they were doing, just to try and get a roof over my head again. And they had moved with no forwarding address, right? Which is a true story. So I was truly, truly alone. And I couch surfed for a while with friends, but it didn't take long for that to get old and me to, I don't want to say hurt my friendship, but stress my friendships. And I've always had this terrible, terrible fear of being a burden. And this is a combination of just life and trauma. But when you're homeless and you don't have a job, I mean, no one's going to give you a place to live because you don't have a job and you're so young. And you're basically bouncing from friend's house to friend's house. You are effectively outstaying your welcome, which feeds into the negative being a burden loop, right? And then not long after that, I was truly homeless. It was the darkest time of my life, you know. Thankfully, I was young and resilient, and for some reason had some kind of built-in optimism. That's the craziest thing. Everything I've been through, I still believe inherently people are good, and I have this overwhelming optimism about life, even though I'm constantly beating myself against the wall for that very same thing. Because my trauma is telling me that people aren't safe, you know. So I ended up getting a really crappy job. I had to drop out of college. I got a crappy job, and I finally found a place to live, and it was a shithole. They couldn't rent this place out because an old woman owned the place and she was incontinent, and the entire house stank of piss. And I needed a place to sleep. And I got this tiny little bedsit or studio apartment, as you'd call it here in the US, with holes in the floor, mice running back and forth. And that's not exaggerating. That was my entertainment because I couldn't afford a TV. I'd watch the mice running back and forth. But it was really cheap. There's a roof. And I was making enough money to pay for my booze. And then it just kept going. I was able to get a better job, make a bit more money. And then I left England back in '88 and I moved to Canada. And that was exciting and scary, but I was so young I didn't really appreciate the fear aspect so much as it was young. It was an adventure, right? Everything was new. And I love Canada. But my alcoholism was... I lived in an apartment on a street called Bell Street. And in Ottawa, Ontario, where I lived in Bell Street, there was a beer store just down the street. And I would go out, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, and I'd buy a 2-4, which is a case of 24 beers. And I'd go back to my apartment and I'd start drinking and drinking and drinking. And the beer store would close at 9, 10, maybe 11. I don't think it was that late. I don't remember. But even after 24 beers, being drunk off my ass, I would go down there and I'd buy another 12-pack before it closed. So it wasn't uncommon for me to drink 24 to 36 beers in a night. I had alcohol poisoning a couple of times, but I didn't care. I deluded myself into thinking that I'm just having fun. I'm adult. That's what adults do. They have fun, they drink, they party, what have you. Not realizing that drinking to blackout every single night wasn't normal. It was for me, but I didn't realize it wasn't normal for others, right? And then, 10 years later, whatever, I moved to the US and had a good job. Company I worked for paid for me to relocate, so things were going good. I was making good money. But the way it was situated here, I was a 30-minute drive away from work. And I don't want to drink and drive. I did, but I didn't want to. And I would try and quit drinking. And I might go a day, 2, 3 days, but never more than a week. And then I would beat myself up because I was too weak. I couldn't quit. I was too weak. So what do? Drink some more. Beat yourself up. You know, the old self-flagellation, you're not good enough, that kind of thing. And then it's like a rinse and repeat thing, right? And I was driving home one night from work, and I'd been to a bar afterwards with some of the people from work. And I had a few drinks, nothing crazy. Like I wasn't drunk. But I'd certainly had enough that if I got breathalyzed, I was worried, you know? The one good thing is I drank so much over the years that I could hold my booze. So I literally could drink a lot of beer and most people wouldn't even know I'd been drinking. And this wasn't me thinking I'm, mastered the code. This is people I've been out with and saying, hey, I've had a few beers, can you take my keys? And like, really? You don't look like you've been drinking. And this happened over and over. And so I had been pulled over at least once in Canada when I was drunk. And the cop just looked at me and he basically waved me on because he didn't realize because I was able to hold it together. And then getting back to here in the US, coming home from work one night, I'd had a few beers. And there's a 3-lane road where the police had like a dozen cars and they filter it all into one lane. And so everybody on that road was being stopped and checked. And I'm like, this isn't going to end well. And I can't turn around because there's a legion of cars all around me. And if the cops see you turn around in a situation like that, I gotta imagine it's going to bring negative attention, right? As luck would have it, they were just wrapping up. So by the time I got there, the stop was dismantled and I was able to drive through. But something happened that night that made me realize that I had a problem. And not being a religious person and having so much embarrassment and so much shame over this, I couldn't go somewhere like Alcoholics Anonymous. In hindsight, I wish I had, even though I'm not religious, because I think the support and the community probably would have helped me far more than the negativity that I perceived from it being a religious type thing. So I thought about this for, days or weeks, I don't remember. And then one day, and I was constantly trying to quit drinking, constantly trying to quit. And then one day I finally said, you know what? I give. I can't quit. This is bigger than me. I'm not strong enough. And I said to myself, I'm giving you permission to drink as much as you want. You can drink yourself into an early grave. You can end up penniless, homeless again. You can end up in jail. You lose your license, whatever. You name the horrible outcome. I kind of went through it and gave myself permission. This is bigger than me. I can't beat this. And you know what happened? Without realizing it, I had removed the shame that I associated with drinking. So now if I wanted to drink, it was okay. I'd given myself permission to drink, so I can drink, no problem. Well, the damnedest thing happened. A month went by, I hadn't had a drink. I'd never gone that long. Then 2 months, then 3 months, then 6 months, then a year. What? This doesn't make sense. I can't tell you how many times I tried to quit and I failed. But by the simple fact of removing the shame, without realizing that's what I was doing, I had managed to slay that dragon. I got that monkey off my back. And that was probably 20 years ago. So yeah, as I said at the beginning of this, right? I'm not recommending you do or try to do what I did to quit drinking. What I am doing is telling you that there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? And simply, without realizing it, removing the shame was so powerful. So powerful. I didn't even realize it. So there you go, guys. I think that's it for today. I think I've gone over my 15 minutes, but I just wanted to share that with you. Feel free to comment below. Let me know how you've struggled or beat addictions, be it alcohol or something else. And let's see if we can get some kind of conversation going. All right, guys, be good to yourself. Have a good weekend.